By the way, guys, welcome. If you don't know, this is Julie Mason. I'm Tom LoBianco. I'm the editor, co-founder of 24sight News. Julie Mason, host of the Julie Mason Show on Sirius XM, channel 124. What is on the Sirius XM? Go check it out. She's on every day from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Has on an array of incredible guests, including some MAGA lawmakers periodically, which she, will routinely get reamed for. Um,
Heaven forfend someone hear from someone they don't agree with, and their meltdown ensues.
well, and I think this is, this is why Julie and I get along. We're reporters, all right. It's like, I mean, we talk to people we don't agree with, all right. It's and it's not just MAGA, by the way.
No, Blue MAGA has some interesting quirks these days as well.
Oh, they've been lit. Blue Sky, the replies on Blue Sky. It's kind of like the replies on Twitter of yore.
Well, yeah, the same people.
Very similar.
Yeah.
What do and for folks who don't know, Julie covered the White House in the Bush administration.
And for Obama, too.
And Obama. Okay, so Julie's a White House expert. I mean, I think you were the president of the White House Correspondents.
Just a board member.
But
I was bossy enough to be president.
You were the Dick Cheney of that operation.
100%. I knew what was best for everyone and let them
know. Shotgun people in the face. Hold my shotgun for me. So, and I feel like, because, you were there for the Iraq war debate. I mean, what are the similarities here?
Oh, there's a lot. There are a lot of similarities. Because here we have a divided country, right? Where half the people are saying it's the news media's job to promote and valorize whatever the administration is doing because it's your patriotic duty. And then there's the other half of the country who says, the news media has to get in there and scream and yell and fight. And meanwhile, we're just trying to get reliable information out of administration that doesn't really have much handy. So, and being accused of being unpatriotic and trying to undermine the troops. They're running a lot of the same programs, and it's incredibly frustrating because as a journalist, you just want to know what happened, right? You just want to know where things stand, and it's really, and you add to it the unreliability of information from this government. So we've had the initial intel assessment. Can we trust the subsequent one? I'm not sure. Is it going to be forged in politics or in reality on the ground? I'm not sure we can trust that process. So there's an extra dimension of, are we getting the best information?
God, what a great point, because we 20 years ago, we were still the gatekeeper, so to say, and there was time, this was even in a pre-Politico era. This was before
pre-Twitter.
Yes, exactly. This is before micro news. It was news, Ari Fleischer, whether he was being entirely correct or not, still had to engage with us in a serious way. He couldn't bring in Breitbart News did not exist.
No.
You couldn't just, yeah.
There were some fringy bloggers, but they didn't have the reach of Newsmax. They didn't have that huge audience, and we weren't as divided. We were divided, but not so much. There was still, everyone relied on the same sources of news, and there wasn't this idea that some news is fake. There wasn't that. We hadn't gone down that road yet.
Yeah. Well, if you were at the White House right now, how would you be handling this? How would you handle a press secretary that just flatly lies to you constantly?
Oh, I don't mean to be cynical and say they all do, but no one expects much from any spokesperson. Some are better than others. I've worked with some terrific ones from both the Republican and Democratic administrations. You have too, Tom. You know who you can trust. You know who's the straight shooter, and who's just the BS artists who are just slinging crap. And you just manage your expectations. You don't get upset because there's so many other sources of information. The spokesperson is just the official word. So, and that's why people get so bogged down in the briefing and what the spokesperson is saying. It's like,
Great point.
don't count on that. Don't count on them. All the great reporting out of the White House, it's not coming from the briefing, and usually doesn't
Yes.
even mention the briefing or has no reference to the briefing. It's all enterprise. It's all what people are coming up with on their own. So keep your eye on that. The briefing is important, but it's not a news gathering system.
I was really surprised by this. God, so true. I mean, I was really surprised by the response and on Sunday. I mean, just 12 hours after this thing happened, the usefulness of the Sunday shows. Like, they were incredibly newsy. Very often, they're not, but it was like a return to the heyday of the Sunday
The
shows.
90s, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham, bless his heart, capital V, capital H, bless his heart,
Mhm.
um, had actionable intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think he was on. What was he on? He might have been on MTP. I can't remember, but it was like right after Vance. And you could see, and you could listen between the lines of that. And then, of course, the president himself, the principal, went ahead and undid everything that they said.
Right. Well, and that's also why it was useful, Tom, because it was raw before they all got together and tried to get their stories straight. You know what I mean? It was like pure id before the propaganda cap got
It's,
screwed on top. So it was,
that's-
it was real.
what do you make of this DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, report that it only set things back by a few months
Well,
versus the Marco Rubio comments?
yeah, I mean, it was preliminary, and
Mm,
preliminary intelligence sometimes doesn't hold up. So, but journalists who handle this information know that. They know that that's not
right.
the definitive thing. I mean, Blue Sky is going to seize on it and be like, "Aha!" But that's
Yeah.
that's not how that works. I mean, there could be subsequent, as I said, subsequent intel reports, but are they going to be reliable? I'm
Mm,
not sure. That could become like a second wave of reporting from these national security reporters working now. You think of like Shane Harris at The Atlantic,
yeah.
Katie Lillis. You think of the team at the New
Yeah.
York Times, the team at the Washington Post. They're not easily gulled, and they know if something's
Yeah.
bogus. And
Yes.
they know layers upon layers, and they're also very sensitive on handling this information. So I have a lot of faith in the
Yeah.
journalists who cover national intelligence.
You know, um, I was at a swim meet. My kiddo, and, the other parents, the morning after Operation Midnight Hammer. Okay, and yes, make of that what you will. um,
I
and
thought that meant something else. I saw that show on Pornhub. That was weird.
I know exactly. produced by a congressional candidate, more than likely. Guaranteed walk in the special election for Jerry Connolly's seat. That's how you win these days. It's like you literally, like, okay, I mean, this was the. You know what? Fuck it. Let's just go there, because I was going to bring this up, but I have been wondering about. 2 years ago, I forget the candidate, the OnlyFans candidate, right, who got, like, destroyed in Virginia as a House of Delegates candidate.
Oh, I know.
Remember this? Yeah, and she got, like, shamed out of it. Um, and now we have, literally, there's another candidate who volunteers. She's like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of an orgy right now. If you'd like to contribute, please press this button right here." I'm being facetious, of course, but she did, openly say that she's a swinger. All right, like, where are we in this nation? What the hell is going on?
Right, right. And then we have Andrew Cuomo, right, resurrected, running for mayor. I mean, he didn't do very well. But
No.
what I will say, Tom, is there's a different standard for women and men. Men can come back from stuff like that. Men can
Mm.
misbehave in
Yeah.
all sorts of sexually inappropriate ways. And it's like, nah, women, still not
Yeah.
allowed. Still not allowed.
Yeah. The California congresswoman,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
who,
Yeah.
yeah, a
Katie,
couple years
Katie,
ago.
Katie.
Yes.
I don't want to misname her, but
I know, right? Was it Hill? Was
is
that
it
it?
Hill?
Yeah. Um, it was horse shit, frankly, you know,
Because if it was a
because
man, she would have been, not fine, but You know, I mean, look what it took to get for them to get rid of Matt Gaetz. Like it had to hit minors like that. You know, that was a bridge too far. Our drugs are still a bridge too far, but other stuff,
Not yeah. I was watching the recap of all the New York stuff, and it reminded of that great SNL sketch on that guy who was running for city council up there, Harvey Epstein, and he's like, "I'm not Harvey, and I'm not Epstein." All right, and then he does that whole thing. And I was at the mine collapse and I helped those workers, all those miners. And it's like Epstein loves miners. He's like, with an E, miners with an E. Yeah. The old adage used to be, live girl or no, dead girl, live boy. All right. And sometimes I wonder, I mean, look how long it took for Gates for that all to shake out. It literally took the House Ethics Committee actually producing a report publicly, which never
right,
happens.
right. He was nominated to be attorney general, so it got he got
Yeah.
pretty far. Now
Yes, he
has
did.
a TV gig.
Do you, yes. Is that oh boy. OAN. Yes, he does, doesn't he? Goes on him and Dr. Phil on these Gestapo ride-alongs. What the fuck? Seriously. What is Dr. Phil doing on that? Like, I feel like that's like watching like Dr. Oz like scream from the floor of the stock exchange about, economics or something
Right,
or in
right,
bailouts.
right. So you're talking about Dr. Phil embedding with ICE to do some raids
Yeah.
in LA. Yeah, I know. I know.
What does
I
he know about that?
I know. It's just that's that's he actually has a good share of the MAGA audience.
He does.
So
Yeah.
it's not a terrible idea for them to incorporate him, you know,
Yeah.
like Democrats might bring Oprah along, and we would say, what does
Good
she have
point.
to do with anything?
Great
But
point.
mhm.
Yeah, right, exactly. Why would we listen to Oprah on any of that? Yeah, good point. Well, do you think? Let me go back to Iran here for a second. And I know it's ADD
Serious
Thursday. I
stuff.
got I got 4 hours of sleep because we're in the middle of a 100-degree heat dome here. Literally, that
Uh-huh.
what the hell? Um, what is the level of threat? I mean, you're looking at this. I mean, I try to consider, how much of our intelligence, national security apparatus has actually been destroyed. How much are we, at the whims of a 22-year-old grocery bagger? Okay, versus, how much of this is Trump reading dynamics that are already out there and then going out there and taking credit for the sun rising. Which is a very classic Trump tactic. I mean, what's your overall sense of this? What's our danger here? What's our level of perpetual engagement? Another forever war potentially.
Right. No, these are all open questions, and these are questions that everyone has. And unfortunately, the information we're getting from the government isn't great. I think it's going to take like a little more time to know. For example, it doesn't feel like the threat is huge. It feels like Iran wants to wind it down, but that's just the impression I'm getting. That's not that's just gut.
Yeah,
But we're going on gut. There could be a sleeper cell attack tomorrow. Who knows? Like it's just really hard to assess what's happening. And whether this is a one and done or an open-ended conflict that's going to go on for a while. Of course, that's what everyone wants to know. Trump seems to think he's out, which is, I think, reassuring for people who do
yeah,
not want to enter into another 20-year, multi-billion-dollar misadventure in the Middle East. But at the same time, is the job finished? It doesn't seem like it is because they still have the
mm,
uranium. The Iranians still have the uranium. They apparently
yes,
still have centrifuges, and they still
yes,
have the knowledge and the
yeah,
cooperation of the Russians who do know how to put those weapons together. So, I mean, they could, based on what we know now, they could reconstitute their program pretty quickly. But again, like it's really hard to know, Tom, because there's just not a lot of useful information.
yeah, yeah. Information is the bedrock of democracy. Good
And
information.
we're still in the fog of war.
Are we gonna have Errol Morris doing like the very thoughtful documentary of Pete Hegseth in 20 years?
Except war fighter.
Oh God. I saw, there was a great photo of the four of them. I think it was the East Room, right at, it was like 10 o'clock when he was doing his speech
Oh, yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
Saturday
Uh-huh.
night. And there's like, there's Trump being Trump, tied down to his knees. All right. Vance, somewhere off in the distance, following a housefly. Pete Hegseth, very Hegseth, I'm not drinking Pete Hegseth. All right.
Sort of gorilla stance, right? Arms
Oh
out to the
yeah.
side.
Oh,
That's, yeah,
absolutely. Yes,
but a
totally.
very characteristic stance. It's effective though. It works.
It
And
was
Rubio.
great.
Yeah, and
And
Rubio.
and, and Rubio with the flat look of somebody who actually understands what's going on.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that the president came out with entourage. He doesn't
Yeah.
do that, and it said to me that he wanted to convey that this was like a group program, that he wasn't out on
Mm,
this limb by himself, that he had these men behind him who were all like in consultation with him. I thought it was it meant to convey strength, but to me it conveyed uncertainty because a president who is
mm,
sure of what he's doing and sure of where he stands would come out by himself, speak resolutely from the podium, and then disappear.
yeah.
So it sent a bit of a mixed message, and I think not the one he
eh,
intended, just in terms
oh,
of White House
yeah.
messaging.
Yeah. Great point. It's
I have
not.
nothing but
Yeah.
great points, Tom. I'm full of great points. I got them
Well.
all.
Well, I mean, I'll take expertise over hot takes any day. um, Yeah, I'm thinking about it in terms of how Biden would handle big speeches, from the Resolute desk. His close. We were covering his closeout. The oligarchy, the light of democracy, that which had the gravitas that he lacked throughout the entire election. Like, and very serious, which, frankly, we are living through right now. Elon Musk is technically out, but Peter Thiel is, still in the shadows somewhere, lurking about. You know, um, God, great point. I was trying to figure out who has his ear on this stuff, right? Which faction? You hear Steve Bannon screaming about it. You hear Tucker Carlson having it, going into a tizzy with Ted Cruz. I mean, really, like, you got to, like, Ted Cruz is the one you.
No, don't leave Ted Cruz alone. I didn't like that. First of all, what does the population of Iran have to do with anything? Like that's such a cheap little gotcha. I'm not here to critique
Does.
Tucker, but I mean, like I thought their debate was interesting, but it just seemed like a lot of cheap attacks. Well, but I like Ted
Yeah.
Cruz, so that's me. He's gonna be on my show tomorrow.
Is he really?
Yeah, of course he is. Love Ted
I
Cruz.
this might be the most astounding moment of this.
I thought I told
Yes.
you that before, and people are always like, "Are you joking?" He's so smart, he's so funny, he's in
Yeah.
on the joke about himself, he takes every interview seriously, he's not trying to deflect,
Yeah.
he engages with you directly, he respects the questions, he's okay, he's a big personality, you just gotta let him be
Okay.
this.
Okay. Was it just, was it like, maybe it's because my experience with him was on the campaign trail, which is, it's like Ron
Different attire.
DeSantis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a different it brings out weird things in people, the campaign, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a constitutional conservative, like capital C on both of them. Like, is that part of it? Like, he's true to it? I mean, is that part of the allure of Ted Cruz? Mm,
I mean, not for me, no,
well,
but for some people. I'm not here to adjudicate his fealty to the Constitution. That's for Texas voters, if they care about that. Um, I just like talking to him.
oh, yeah, I could see him being a better legislator, a better, okay.
It's a good
I need
interview.
to give I need to give him a second chance.
Everyone does.
Yeah, okay. Oh, could he rebrand for 28?
But how? Like,
Yeah, it's baked in.
he just is what he is. It's baked in. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think he loves his podcast. Loves it.
Zodiac Ted Cruz. There. That,
Like, he
yes.
even joked about that. You know what I mean? Like, he's
Yeah.
in on it. He's okay. All right, I'm done
Okay.
defending Ted Cruz, but I
this is the sabotage part of the interview. I get Billy Mason to defend Ted Cruz on there. This is like life changing. Um, speaking of speaking of people who need defending and come across as flat as Ted Cruz on the campaign trail, let's talk about the Democrats right now.
Oh God, what a mess in New York. I mean, but everyone's trying to draw these broad conclusions out of what happened
Yeah,
in New York, Tom. But I feel like Andrew Cuomo is not like a generic Democrat. If
yeah,
Zohran Mamdani had to run against generic Democrat, like
yeah.
I think we get a different result. I think this was very Andrew Cuomo specific that a lot of young voters were like,
Mm,
oh, hell no to that guy. Whereas a lot of older Democrats were like, does anything matter? He's tough. He'll get it done. And I mean, I think a lot still has to shake out, but everyone's saying, that this just shows the Democratic Party is still stupid and doesn't know anything about anything. And
mm,
like, I think this was a very specific instance. I mean, how
yeah,
do you square that with what's happening in Virginia, what's happening in New Jersey, where we see two
yeah,
strong centrist Democratic women poised to become governor, right? And
yes.
so the Democratic Party's right on this, but wrong on Mamdani. But I just think that New York is New York, and it's just its own thing, and the Cuomo thing, and all that, and ranked choice voting. And I don't think you can draw, and I don't think you can draw huge like conclusions about the
Mm.
Democratic Party. But do you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I kind of, actually, I was thinking about that this morning. Well, I couldn't sleep. I was reading through the New York Times live blog, and
Oh, well, that'll put you to sleep.
it didn't work. I'm still, I know, right? It's really, it's that hot, and the heat pump HVAC system in this house does not work the way I need it to right now. So slept on the floor in the basement. Really, that was,
Like a
really,
serial
that's
killer, Tom.
like a Zodiac,
No,
like working on my little time.
noted.
um, great movie, by the way. I rewatched it for the first time probably like 20 years, whatever, a couple,
Good
couple
news
months
of a
ago.
movie. It's a good news movie. Newsroom.
It is. It's amazing. I love it. Just brilliant. I do. I love that. Not extrapolating out from New York because if you look at that map that they had of the predominant Mamdani voters of I mean and granted I'm an elder millennial but it's my crew, all right, it's Williamsburg, it's Queens, all right, it's yes, I know this is not the Queens of Donald Trump, prosperity
No, this
street
is
fighting.
Cheese Shop Queens. Cheese
Yes.
Shop.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And to your point, it's not working class New Jersey. It's not it's not a patriarchal Northern Virginia, elite Democrat. All right, defense industrial complex Democrat. It's just a totally different world. And I agree with you. I don't think it's representative of the party writ large right now. But I was wondering how much of it, because if you take away the ideology for a second, um, and look at the campaign styles, and I wonder how much of it was the styles, because you look if you were to put Mamdani and John Fetterman side by side, and Fetterman is somebody who engages.
Mhm.
I mean, he's somebody Cuomo did not engage. It was the functional Clinton problem, the
Right,
Hillary Clinton problem.
right.
Twice, by the way. All right, hiding. You can't hide your way to a victory. That doesn't work. You can't buy your way to a victory. And I don't know what other Democrats are doing this well right now. I mean, as much as Sanders and AOC have this incredible base, and it's just perpetual energy. I don't know who the other ones are that are doing this right now. And it might not be ideology based. I don't think it is. I think it's more performative based.
Yeah, you see someone like Wes Moore, right, who's very strong with the Democratic Party, who's really
Yes.
well positioned for 2028. Um,
Yes.
you know,
I roll my eyes at it because he's my home state governor. And
understood. That's
we're
obligatory.
always
It's obligatory.
we're always hardest on them. But his performative, I just remember he shotgunned that beer with the Ravens. And I roll my eyes and I'm like, well, this is friggin' stupid. But I'm sure other people look at it and they're like, well, he almost smashed the beer can on his forehead. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
with the
know,
football team. Yeah.
yeah, that's chops.
Yeah.
You know, that
Yeah.
registers. Mayor Pete would have it.
Mhm.
I think he's done very good. There was a really good there's this great profile or an interview, a good deep interview. It was like a deep this is you tell it's crafted by the New York Times. It's the equivalent of a 3-hour podcast in writing. Okay. Of Andrew Schulz, the mustache guy. What's his thing? Flagrant. That's the one. All right, super podcast Andrew Schulz. And it was good. It was very thoughtful. It got very deep into him being more of like a Bernie bro and why Trump registered with those people. I could see Buttigieg working in that world.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know who the other ones are though yet. And who else works with this?
Well, Amy Klobuchar, recently visited New Hampshire. I don't know what she was
Oh,
doing in New Hampshire. We all know what she was doing in New Hampshire. Who else? Oh gosh, there's a whole bunch of them out there making moves. I mean, Pritzker, obviously, he announced for governor, but you know, still understood that he may run for president.
hmm.
Cory Booker, don't write him off. You know,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Andy Bashir, also
Yes.
very, very strong possibility. I mean, these are all people who are looking at it or reportedly looking at it, and I think there's a pretty wide field out there. A lot of governor heavy, a lot of heavy on the governors.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and they're starting to visit. Sarah Huckabee Sanders making a little trip out to Iowa. What's she up to? Like,
Oh ho.
there's a lot happening that's we're just so convulsed with Washington, D.C. that, they get to go make these little overtures kind of early and we're not really super paying attention.
Oh, well, it reminds me of how Buttigieg immediately after, he hired up Liz Smith, who was the old DGA comms director,
Mhm.
in a previous era was the harbinger of Martin O'Malley for president, right? She would go out there and work, and I felt very good in the moment. Um, he started working the circuit with that run for the DNC chair in 2017, and he would talk to anybody.
That's what I was
So
gonna say. I mean, in contrast to Cuomo, right? Buttigieg
yeah.
will go on anywhere and talk. I had him for an hour in studio to talk about his memoir, right? Like like the answer was always yes with him. Yes, he'll do it. Yes, he'll show up. Yes, he'll come in. And it was a really good strategy. It put him in front of everyone. And he followed that up when he was transportation secretary.
Oh
Did like
yeah.
3 town halls with the guy, and they huge turnout. I mean, there was
Yeah.
one place we did at Georgetown, and they told me the room could hold 500, and I was like, "Well, I'm not gonna get 500 people to hear the transportation secretary talk about the infrastructure bill. Are you kidding me?" There was so much overflow, they had to open 2 other rooms because everyone
Wow.
came, and people just turn out for him, and it's a lot of young people.
Was it Institute of Politics?
Yeah,
Georgetown Institute
yeah,
of
love
Politics?
them. Love. Uh,
Yes, I think, unprompted here, I think Mo Lathey has done an incredible job of building that thoughtfully with their programs.
100%. And they're so nice. They're wonderful to deal with. And
Yeah.
it's just beautiful to go over to Georgetown and be around the students and to see
Yeah.
the students so engaged. I don't know about you, Tom. Maybe you were different, but when I was younger, I was in college. I couldn't be bothered with all that. I didn't care. Everyone was going to
Yeah.
protest apartheid and stuff, and I was like, "What's apartheid?" Because you're young and you're stupid, but these kids
Yeah.
are young, they're not stupid.
Gen Z is very engaged.
Yeah.
Not always engaged in the way that, like, we want them to be engaged. Like the way that I think of 20 years ago, the way people would rip on millennials. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
And it's
still do, Tom.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. I wear that ship. I see it, and it's great, and not and truly heterodox, not in the way that we come out of the 24 election and everybody's like, "Oh my god, major shift in the manosphere," the Gen Z electorate. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure that it was. I don't think these things are permanent.
No, I agree with you. You're so right. I mean, remember the Obama coalition and that he
Hmm.
put into place this coalition of voters that was going to stand the test of time. It was going to be there for Hillary. It was going to be there for Biden. It was going to be there for Kamala.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes. Yeah,
Disappeared
right.
into the mist. It was Obama specific. And we get locked into these ideas of like permanent majorities and permanent cohorts and the constituencies. It's always shifting. It's always shifting.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it
Yes.
great, right? It makes politics a dynamic thing in this country because it's always changing. And even though we can like recite everything that's happened since 1964, well, that county you know what I mean? And that election went this way, but there's enough that's dynamic that trips us up and gives us surprises every cycle, and that's one of the things I love
Yes.
about it.
Oh, I know. It's so great. What? Okay. How did you get your start in journalism? What did you start covering?
I started as a clerk in the Washington bureau of the Dallas Morning News. I know I was
Wow.
cute. And, my first ever assignment was I went to a book signing, and I did not completely screw it up, but I screwed it up somewhat. And, it was a member of Congress, who had a book out, and I went to their book signing at a bookstore and did a little feature story and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my start in Texas journalism, and,
Wow.
yeah, I know, weird because 'cause I'm from Massachusetts, but that's where the jobs were, so that's where I went, and I loved it. It was really wonderful. And you and I are both devotees of regional journalism being just the best
Yes.
journalism. And
Yes.
yes, and my favorites here in Washington, no disrespect to people who have only covered
Yeah.
Washington, but there's the richer soil when you are, for example, Jonathan Tamari, who works at Bloomberg Government.
Absolutely.
He came out of
Yes.
Philly, where he covered
Yes.
politics for the Philly Inquirer, and
Yes.
I can talk about Fetterman for an hour, and he comes from the
Yes.
he's been to the town, he's interviewed the senator, he
Yes.
knows the voters, he knows the
Yep.
whole vibe in Pennsylvania and the whole history of the thing, and now he's here in Washington, and it just gives, like, such richness to his reporting. I
It
really
really
appreciate that.
I love it. I love it too. I think it's very useful, for any, aspiring journalists listening to this and that, even citizen journalists who are podcasters. I really think, coming up through the ranks, you understand things better and you can have a better conversation with your sources. When you like to find the number of Arlen Specter hacks that are in the Trump world. All right. And right. And if you're just a Washington person, you would view that as, oh, a Specter flip flop moderate, change parties. Didn't he lose to Joe Sestak too? Didn't like the Democrats screw him on that? It was hilarious. Like 09, 10, I can't remember. But it's not ideological. David Urban, you
Yeah.
know, power player of Trump world out of PA
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
Specter, like, yeah. It's really great. Yeah. Did you ever cover any local stuff, any county, any city?
Yeah, oh, yeah. I was the county government reporter, and then I spent years as the city hall reporter, then I went on to cover the state legislature, then I was the state political writer, and then I was the national political writer, and then the White House reporter, so I made my way all the way up.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Alright, which city? Dallas?
Houston.
Houston?
Houston, Texas. Love it.
Oh,
Best city
yeah?
here, best people, best news, just everything about it is absolutely wonderful. They used to call me
What's
the
the
Chamber of Commerce.
what is the color of Houston? Is it kinda like half New Orleans, half Dallas? What's
Yeah,
the
basically.
flavor?
Yeah, it is
Okay.
because it's a port city, so it's
Mm.
very welcoming. It's like, you know how the mafia controls cities, different families control different cities, but then every now and then there's an open city that isn't controlled by anyone?
Oh.
And Houston is like that. One of the it's since
Mm.
it's so many people from other places, you can be anyone from anywhere. But if you have a good line of BS and you have, like, some pretty nice manners, you can do anything there. They'll let you do they don't care where you're from, who your daddy knows, what kind of money your family has, whether you're Irish or
Oh.
Italian, like, they don't care. Like, none of this tribalism in older cities. It's just it's like a place where people go to make money. And
Wow.
so it's a very welcoming city and very diverse, incredibly diverse. No one can bully anyone else because everything's pretty equal. One third black, one third Hispanic, one third white, and everyone just
Oh,
minds their business and gets along.
wow.
Yeah.
Who's the mayor then?
Right now, John Whitmire, but they've run through that. But they had they were the first major city to elect a lesbian mayor, and they've had a string of black mayors, and you know what I mean. And
Wow.
kind of getting their
Yeah.
shot at mayor. Hmm.
I used to love so and then I assume you moved to Austin after that when you went to
Yeah,
this.
and I went to Austin
Yeah.
when Bush was governor.
Oh ho.
Crown girl.
Was he fun to cover when he was governor?
Yeah, when he was governor, he was really fun. Yeah, I would say more so when he was president because he like really like it was always known that governor was just like a pit stop on his way to becoming
Yeah.
president. So he was always there was like a little anxiety to it. But once he was president, it was like it was he was so but also and what people miss about him, and I'm not gonna get all up on my Bush thing, he
Yeah.
really thought he's a incredibly considerate person. Think of
Huh.
this, every
Yeah.
holiday, he and Mrs. would go to Camp David so that their staff, the Secret Service, the press could have that time with their families. And
Oh, what's
Bush did
up?
that deliberately because he felt like
Wow.
all of these people give up all their personal lives to come cover my administration, and I need to be mindful that they need to spend time with their families. And he would do
Wow.
that. And I have not seen a president since have that kind of consideration for the people who work with them.
Do you think I at the beginning of Trump, and I think back to Iraq War, '06, the '08 race, the response, the coverage response, particularly NPR, because I'm a coastal who listens to NPR religiously. Yes, I know, right? It's that is my bubble. But then, so 8 years later, during Trump and the first Trump term, holding NPR holding up W as like this, this golden child of democracy. All right.
No, it was funny. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done with that? Go ahead.
But
I'm
I
sorry.
was just curious. I mean, like we're I mean, I did not cover his administration, but broadly speaking, the press unfair to him, when he was in office?
No,
Was
I
it
don't think
too
so. No,
Hmm?
because I mean, when you think about the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, and those were the things that really brought him down, and those were
Yeah.
in the final assessment misadventures based on bad intelligence and all that. But he felt the press was really unfair to him and had a lot of anger about it. But
Mm.
I think that history is a little more clear eyed about him. What he did with PEPFAR, for example, saving
Yeah.
26 million lives in Africa, and also the extent to which he stayed out of everything ever since then. Just went back to Texas and took up oil painting.
Yeah.
I think people respect that a lot. But I did discover, Tom, when he opened his presidential library, I did a whole special on my show about it, like what was in the
Hmm.
library and all that. People were really angry. People are still really angry about him. Voters still have a lot of residual unresolved Bush.
Oh.
So that is definitely out there.
Should he be out more in public?
He has said, and I think he's right, that I mean, what's his constituency? Do Republicans care what he thinks? Do Democrats care what he thinks? He's like, and his
Yeah.
point is nobody cares what he thinks, so he might as well just say nothing. He's like,
Hmm.
he doesn't have moral authority, and like he knows that,
Yeah.
and so he
Yeah.
says, why get involved? Even
Yeah.
though people really feel like he needs to take a stand, but why? Just so they can have the satisfaction of him taking a stand? Like, nope, people don't really follow him as a leader.
Yeah. You're like the Ron Fournier of W. Like
Ron Fournier is the Ron Fournier of W.
I say that as a compliment. It's because I mean, that's a rare thing, right? To see somebody at all levels like that, and to truly understand your subject.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, that's and it helps, right? I mean, these people, they are people,
they are.
yeah,
They are.
and you know, it's. Do you? When was the last time you talked with W?
it's been forever. I've tried to get him on my show a million times, including when PEPFAR has been imperiled and talk about the program and stuff like that. But he does not, he will not do it. He'll do like a little event at the Bush Library or at some like democracy forum kind of thing a couple times a year. And that's it. That's it. He just doesn't. But I've had like his chief of staff, Josh Bolton, who's chairman of the Business Table now. Great guy, and a lot of people who worked for him are still in the mix in DC.
Yes.
And we had great relationships with them. The press who covered Bush like really got along with his staff. But it's funny. And to go back to your original point, like Dana Milbank and I often joke, like, what were we so mad about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we spent the entirety of the Bush administration, like, curious and, and on high alert. And it's like, what was the big dilemma? Like, what was, but then, the wars and all that, and there was some stuff. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, so the point I was going to make is Robert Draper, who's a terrific writer at the New York Times, during the Bush administration or right after it, wrote a book about Bush that was absolutely lacerating. Just like, it was a very tough book on President Bush. But then, like at the end of Trump's first term, he came out with another book about Trump, and I said to him, I said, I think the news in this book is that you've reevaluated George W. Bush, and he was like, yes, yes, I have. I have reevaluated Bush. Just like in contrast. So he'd come to a completely different conclusion about the Bush presidency, having gone through like the first iteration of the Trump presidency.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of people have that.
Because, especially, I think back to the way the left writ large, I watch Jon Stewart now and, love Jon Stewart. And, I enjoy Jon Stewart. I'm of that age. This is why millennials are wrong.
He's not a journalist, right? He's not a journalist. Like, do you know that?
This could be the original sin of like comedians usurping journalists.
They don't usurp us.
That's right. No, they don't. They don't. But I do wonder if like everybody, for lack of a better term, blew their load on, on W, being like, this guy is the great Satan, the left, so that by the time, somebody rolls around who, directs an insurrection, attempts a coup, has given us post-play Stasi. Now I see these videos of these people dressed up as police, not the ones murdering lawmakers, by the way, like this guy Belter out in allegedly, but yes, he appears to have murdered a lawmaker and her husband out in Minnesota. Did everybody shoot cry wolf so much that it doesn't work anymore? Like you do it all in W, so that by the time you get somebody who actually does behave like a dictator, whether or not he actually is that, there's nothing left, right? Everybody's kind of tuned it out.
Maybe so, but I mean, there are so many voters now who don't even really remember Bush.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, nobody, and all that the Mamdani block, as it were.
And the thing with Trump is like, in terms of crying wolf, it seems like everything he does gets like the opposition so stirred up that everything is a crisis, and then everyone gets crisis fatigue. So like, Trump is his own perpetual machine of crying wolf, of the opposition resistance crying wolf. So they don't even really need the Bush example.
To
negate that. It's just a thing.
What are you covering this week? I mean, what are the big stories aside from we might be annihilated by a missed nuke?
Well, something really nice. Today on my show, I have Lisa Murkowski for like 40 minutes talking about her new memoir, which is so lovely. I mean, she gets all into the Kavanaugh stuff. You remember she voted against Kavanaugh.
Oh, that's right.
And
yes.
She and Trump had a real contretemps. He tried to, interfere in her reelect and all that. But for my money, when I read her book, The Passion was about Alaska and the Alaskan people and her relationship to the native people of Alaska and her family ties, her dad being senator and then governor and all that. And so there's just little things in the book. Like at one point, someone gives her a small river stone and tells her she's going to need it. And she was like, oh, did you know I collect stones? And they just smiled at her and said, you're going to need that stone. And she ended up carrying the stone through like difficult times in the Senate and then like passed it on to other members of the family who carried it like, I want to say to final exams or to, like whenever there was a crisis moment in the family, they carried the stone. And it was just like these lovely little traditions. And also the native people had named her Lady of the Land. It's just it's a lovely book, and I so enjoyed my conversation with her. It was just a nice little break from like screaming about like intel out of Iran. It was just a nice little soothing moment.
Oh, right on.
Mhm.
And this is how long is it? The book?
The
How many
book is
pages?
like 300 pages. It's a whole life about her getting into politics and her life back in Alaska and her whole like tenure in the Senate and her relationship with other senators. It's chock full. But
You had Ron Wyden on, right, for this incredible book, and she is like, this is reminding me of this, of, for lack of a better term, her assaulting him with, what was it, chip dipped in natural gas?
it
Or
was
a
a
graham
graham
cracker?
cracker. It was a graham cracker dipped in liquefied natural gas. So, right. So I read Ron Wyden's memoir where he reveals this shocking episode, right? And I asked him about it and he laughed. And then Murkowski comes in, and I finally have my chance to ask her about these allegations. so, yeah, I laid out the charges and very seriously said, "Ma'am, how do you answer the allegations?" You laughed. Yeah. She talked about how wonderful it was that a senator from the other party would come to Alaska to see what Alaskans were up to and what they were up against, and she thought that was terrific.
So she didn't deny it.
There was non-denial denial. No, there was no denial. She acknowledged, but neither of them elaborated. I was like, what was the point? And they were just like, it's not obvious.
I know what does natural gas taste like?
He said it tasted disgusting. He said it was like the worst thing he'd ever eaten. But I think her point was that it's natural, so you can eat it if you must. I'm just guessing because she didn't disclose. But that happened. Graham cracker dipped in liquefied natural gas. That's a snack now in Alaska.
Have other people done this?
I'm not the expert on this, Tom. I'm sorry.
My God. Okay. All right. Well, 24 guys, 24sight is opening a GoFundMe to fly to Alaska.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I can eat fucking graham crackers dipped in natural gas. All right. I will do that.
You'll report back. You won't be evasive about it. You'll let us know.
If I survive, yes. Absolutely. I will be the first to tell you of the sheen, how it coats your. I don't even know what the hell would it do. It's just everything about it is. What do you do? It's like drinking gasoline. What the? Sorry, it just.
Yeah, I don't think the graham cracker would like save it. I don't.
No,
really neutralized by the graham cracker.
Exactly. What does it do? It probably soaks it up. Oh, dear God. So so when's the Murkowski interview
this afternoon in the 5 o'clock
hour?
hour.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I pre-taped it. I taped it last week, and the book I think came out yesterday. So now we're rolling it out. I think people will like it. My listeners, they tune in for politics. They love politics. They want to know.
Yeah.
But every time I do something a little off politics, they're like, "Oh, thank you so much."
Yeah.
Really nice to take a little break. Really nice. Yesterday, I had two voiceover artists come in. They're lobbying on the Hill against AI, against like what AI does to their industry.
Oh,
so they're like raising awareness. Yeah, really fascinating. People who they voice like commercials and video games, and really interesting stuff. And I mean, these two, you would know their voices. They are the voices for national brands. But I couldn't mention it, couldn't get into it on the air because this is their work. But and they're really concerned about AI and how you can take like a little snippet of your voice and embroider a whole vocabulary and steal work and steal identity from people.
God,
That was really interesting too.
I was listening to I think it might have been Fresh Air, an interview with Mark Hamill. With speaking of voiceovers, it's legendary voiceovers. Um, yeah, incredible. Was it Scarlett Johansson? Was she the one who sued one of these companies like OpenAI or somewhere
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
taking her likeness?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bonkers. Do you
Really
get you get those voicemails now where it's like it's the AI voice, and I'm
yeah.
kind of like I don't know. That's a little I don't know. It's a little too smooth.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. Is AI going to take us? Is AI like, are we going to be living on the Andrew Yang universal basic income? Well,
100%.
okay. Are we AI right now?
I mean, your eyes look a little dead, Tom.
Oh. No. When you said that Jackie Kucinich thing, I like really
Did I
like
blow your mind with that? You got to tell the audience what the Jackie Kucinich thing is.
my brain is racked right now. Oh, and guys, if you go through I linked it in one of the previous ones. I'll re-up it when I publish this thing. I will re-up it because we talked about it on the air. So I took the clip and I linked
Oh,
the
nice.
clip in there. So Jackie Kucinich, of course, longtime Daily Beast, now Boston Globe, which I love. Speaking of Massachusetts, I love the renaissance of the Boston Globe.
It's wonderful. It's so great.
It's they have such an incredible team, and and Jackie's always been a great reporter, and then now a great editor and a great newsroom leader. Um, yeah, her scenario, this is
She has
evil.
a theory, that we all died in Trump's first term, and now we live in a simulation because we can't really process what's happening.
The fuck?
What percentage of you suspects this might be true? Is it 30%?
It's more than that.
More than that. Are you 60%?
You can't reach through the screen right now, and you can't see whether I'm a hologram. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Nor can I. I don't know. I really. It would explain a lot. Um,
The feeling that everything is so surreal, right? And also that
yeah,
everything's new and yet deeply familiar. It all
yeah,
kind of tracks, and that you feel
yeah,
sort of anxious all the time because you're in a simulation.
yeah.
It's like
Uh,
not quite reality.
like what was it Dark City, the movie from the '90s? Yes.
Love that with Jennifer Connelly as a torture.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. Go to sleep, wake up, world flips around a little bit, some walls shift. Your only guide is Kiefer Sutherland. It's I
Mine
do
would
not
be
know
Peter
that.
Baker. Mine would be Peter Baker from the New York Times. So it'd be like, Peter, take us out of the darkness.
I'll tell you, Peter Baker and Susan Glasser, thank God, as barometers of where we are, especially with their work in Moscow,
Yeah.
covering this. Um, okay, I'm going to wrap this up here. Julie Mason, guys. Julie, where do we find you? People.
I'm not on X or Blue Sky, so sorry, but I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can also email me, juliesiriusxm@gmail.com.
Okay. And the Julie Mason Show, weekdays, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Sirius XM channel 124. I would note a very good channel. I think it's primed for this. I look at Candace Owens trying to rebrand as centrist right now, and I'm like, no, yeah, right, yeah, really,
I think it's too
yeah,
late.
yeah, I think so. If you're talking Hitler stuff, I think you don't get to come back from that. It's kind of like Kanye trying to rebrand. If you ever did that, I don't think. Nah, no. Um, I'm Tom LoBianco, editor, co-founder of 24sight News. So I'll publish this for everybody who missed it. All right, and all you hooligans who are slacking. I know you're on Blue Sky. I posted this on there. All right. I sent the nod. All right. Well, you'll be able to find it later over at 24sight News. And if you don't subscribe already, hit that thing. It's like right up there on the app. And there's probably, when this gets onto YouTube, there will be a button right down there that you can punch and subscribe, share, comment, send it around. And I'll see you for our next simulation.
Thank you, Tom.
See you.